and everywhere on Spilling the Anxiety. You guys are in for a real treat because this is my season finale for season 1. I actually didn't decide this until about half an hour ago. And then I was thinking, God, what would be a really good season closer? So one of the things that I'm going to do is that this episode is going to be ad-free. Bullshit. It's going to have the commercials at the front and the commercials in the back, but it's going to have no breaks. Because, I still got to make my bread. But this episode is going to be ad-free, and it's going to be a little longer than usual as I sit down and discuss all the things that I think this season has done for me. I'm going to wrap up some thoughts. I'm going to leave you guys with some thoughts. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride, so let's get started. Normally right now I'd probably go for a break, but here we are. I'm catering to the fans. So, God, where do I begin? Why did I choose to break up this podcast into seasons? So, upon all the research that I did before starting this podcast, was deciding how long did I want my podcast episodes to be, how often did I want them to be. Weekly just seemed like it wouldn't gain enough traction. I want when people looked up my content that they had a plethora of stuff to go through, because I feel like I hate going to see somebody's page and know that they're releasing content and then they have nothing for me to look for because they're relatively new or they're still getting on their feed, or inconsistency is really annoying to me. I have a few people that I follow on TikTok that they do put out stuff every day or every week. They have something brand new. And so I know when to look for it. So I'm satisfied when I get it. And that was something I wanted to do as a content creator. Really, my goal with this podcast was just to put my experience out there. But as I've done the podcast, I realized that it was a commitment. It was a commitment to myself to say, hey, it doesn't matter how tired I am. It doesn't matter what I have to do. I will release an episode every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Next season, I might just stick to hour-long episodes weekly. And then in the meantime, in the hiatus, I'm going to put out a lot of other content stuff that people don't really know that I'm doing. I mean, nobody really knows what I'm doing because, let's be real, my podcast has 3 listeners. Sorry, y'all, I'm drinking a Malta. But in the long run, when I look at it, I want to feel proud about this. And I want to know that I put my best foot forward in everything that I had into it. It's been a very long time since I've made a commitment to anything. Commitments to diets failed. The only thing that I think might have stayed consistent is my commitment to my children. And I think that that's just, it's probably more insecurity than anything else. But my commitment to my children is just being there, which is a huge deal. Not a lot of parents can be. But, I want to be able to say, hey, I drop off my kid every morning and I pick them up every afternoon, or I'm here every afternoon when they get picked up. I'm here for dinner, et cetera, et cetera. Those were things that were important to me. But I hadn't made any other commitment in a very long time. Everybody here knows I'm unmarried. I don't, even when I was in a relationship, I wasn't in the kind of relationship where, I guess there wasn't a consistent, we'd talk every day or every second of every day, or we'd call each other. It was very, if anything, my relationship was very inconsistent. Not necessarily in a negative way, just more maybe I'll wake up from a text from him, maybe not. Maybe he'll wake up in the bed, maybe not. It allowed me to have a certain level of independence. And it allowed us to miss each other without getting in each other's face, I guess. That's not to say that I preferred it that way. That's kind of just the way that it ended up. But I'm saying in the long run, because of the changes that I experienced as a person in my personality, I feel like it ended up meshing well. Now as a person, I could not stomach the idea of being in, I'm lying. I just lied when I said that. I can stomach the idea of being with somebody that I would talk to throughout the day, in the morning, at night. But it really depends on the dynamic. So, the commitment to myself, the commitment to other people that I really don't know, because whoever's out there listening, I was seeing that, there were impressions in like Florida, Pennsylvania, and all that other stuff. Like, I don't know anybody in Florida who would be listening. Or, in California, none of that. So I'm doing a commitment to people that I don't know, to say, hey, I'm going to bring this content to you, and whether you're hearing it because it serves you a purpose or because you just want to hear my fuck ups, then here you go. I promise to put it out all the time. So that was something huge to me. Even working from home wasn't so much of a commitment, because even though I had to be there every day, it was pretty flexible. Now in doing this podcast, it allowed me to accept in my mind that I am able to make a commitment. And I think that's why I'm doing well at my new job. It is a set schedule. And I've got to be honest, it's a little, it's hard for me to get into that, because nothing about my schedule was really set except for the times that my kids would be at school and picked up. That was the only thing that was really set in my life. But I'm getting into the groove of things. I'm getting into the groove of having a lunch break. So it's cool. This podcast allowed me to explore. There were certain things that I didn't know I was feeling. There were none of this. I need you guys to know that none of this season was really, at the beginning, I had plans as far as what I was going to talk about. But as the podcast went on, it is very hard to come up with topics that you can discuss for roughly an hour, half an hour to an hour, 3 times a week, and have a consistent opinion on it. It's hard. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot during this experience, and now what I want is to take a hiatus to, I guess, give my life an opportunity to evolve. Give it an opportunity to grow, give an opportunity for things to change with the changes that I've implemented in my life. I'll talk to you guys about my summer when I come back. I'll let you guys know what happens. I mean, who knows? Maybe I come back married. That's not happening. But I think it's just time for me to, when I started this, I did it as an opportunity for other people to see. It was almost like I wanted to give advice, but it didn't work out that way. It ended up kind of just being like a personal journal, but it was like, I wish you guys knew like how I personally felt every time I'm done with one of these. Like, there's a mixture of like pride with, fuck, I'm scared, and nervous, and just, damn, I didn't really know that I felt that way. None of these were scripted. None of these were pre-planned. I did have some topics that I really wanted to go to, but as the podcast evolved, a lot of these topics I literally pulled out of a hat. I pulled out of my ass. The absolute crack of my ass sometimes. Just to, like, 10 minutes before I started. Now I'm in this place where there's a lot that I want to discover. There's a lot that I want to do. I stopped breastfeeding during this podcast. I know when I opened up the podcast, when I first started, I believe my 4th episode was talking about how I felt about breastfeeding my son, because it was tearing me down. And now, during the course of this, I've stopped breastfeeding, and I've got to say that I feel so free. Part of me wants to sometimes still do it. I just stopped like 2 weeks ago. My son was very sick last night, and it was so concerning to me, and I hated seeing him that miserable. And I instinctually just wanted to breastfeed, and then I realized I don't have any more milk. So I have to console him the old-fashioned way. And it's hard getting to know your kid outside of breastfeeding, because you get this overriding feeling that they just They just like you because you're the food. And as soon as, their dad didn't ever want to stay with them because he was like, I can't just whip out my boob and, make him be quiet or make them be quiet. That's really a you thing. And then I realized my kids are only well behaved with me because whenever they get fussy, whenever they cry, whenever they stick their hand down my shirt, I can just whip it out and feed them. But when you can't do that anymore and you're relying on everything else, you kind of just, you feel like an outsider. You're like, fuck, I thought my kid was well behaved. I thought my kid, listened and everything. And it turns out I just shut my kid up with food. So learning my son outside of that has been an experience too. It brings me, I'm like almost sad that I'm not going to be doing it. It's funny thing is I've been coming home from work and I've been like, God, I really don't want to do this podcast right now because it's so time consuming. And now that I'm about to take an extended break, I'm like, shit, I kind of don't want to. I've learned so much in doing this podcast, I had to network with others. Like I was a nobody. I'm probably still a nobody, but I had to get like Instagram and TikTok and actually put up videos and comment on other people's things in order to navigate engagement over to my side. I had to make like a Facebook page and I joined a couple of groups, moms with anxiety and depression, breastfeeding support groups, all this other stuff, because in the hopes of actively engaging with other people who were part of my target audience, they would look at my page and be like, oh my God, what's this? And, they would get invested. They would get involved. So, sorry, fixing my mic. So I realized something that I firsthand experienced recently. Some of the people in these groups, and I don't want to say women, but I only experienced it with women. People can be nasty, y'all. Like I asked the question, like I was concerned that, I may be with child, which bothered me a lot because I mean, anybody who listens to this podcast would know that I don't, mentally, I don't think I can handle a fourth child. I really, really couldn't. It's not something that I can handle. And so, I put the stuff out there that I thought that I may be pregnant again, and I wanted to make sure that the symptoms that I were experiencing weren't of an early pregnancy. The reason why I was concerned is because I was on birth control at the time, actively on birth control. And then, like my doctor didn't set me up with a new thing. So I ended up stopping the pack. But at the time that this happened, this, faux pas happened, I was like on either the last day of the pack or the first day of the placebo week. Either way, regardless, I was not supposed to get pregnant. And so I started having fears because I'm like, crap, I'm experiencing a lot of things consistent with pregnancy. Has anybody else had the experience with getting off of birth control that this is what it, has anybody else experienced these symptoms? Because I don't really think that I can handle being pregnant again. Now, my question was, has anybody experienced this while getting off of birth control? What I got from a bunch of women, which was absolutely disgusting how I was attacked, I may be biased, but whatever, was that, I shouldn't be sleeping with somebody. Mind you, the question was, I did preface that it was with my ex, who I no longer am with, but we still click. And, I had a lot of people telling me, well, if that's your ex, you shouldn't be sleeping with him and, use a condom. Jesus Christ, who knows what he could be doing now that you guys aren't together and all this other nonsense. And I'm just like, wow, y'all sound like a bunch of goofy bitches. You really do, because does it matter? Like, would it make everybody happier? Would it please the court if I was experiencing this with somebody that I don't share children with somebody that I'm unsure about, with somebody that I'm also not married to, or just some random individual that I decided to have a good time with. I don't understand why it bothered so many people that I chose to be an adult with somebody that I have 3 children with. That absolutely baffled me. And then I was like, well, use a condom because, that sounds like an STD. It didn't sound like an STD. It really didn't. Like, at most, I told them, I'm like, I'm experiencing, like, ovulation discharge. That's it. No other symptoms other than that in, like, a short period. And so everybody was like, well, you should use a condom. Who knows what to get? Like, multiple people were like, this could be an STD. What could he have given you? First off, let's be clear. I'm doing this with this person without, I don't want to say without protection, because again, I was on birth control, but without a physical barrier, a physical prophylactic, because I trust that there was no reason to, based on just our circumstances. But he's also trusting to do the same with me. So the same way that I'm single and he could assume that I'm out here, fucking every Tom, Dick, and Harry, I'm supposed to assume the same thing the same way that I'm supposed to assume that he's doing something, he could easily assume I'm doing the same. And we're both adults. It was both consensual. So again, I don't understand why that part was anybody's business. And I realized that that for a lot of these support groups, very few people are supportive, which greatly reinforced my reason for doing this podcast. Because it's like, when I see women who bring up situations that may be privy to judgment, to be honest, it's easy to judge. And that's for me. And I've gone through a lot of shit. But it's easy for me to be like, hey, that shit is crazy. I would never do that, blah, blah, whatever. There was an alarming amount of people who, I'll see it. I'll in my mind, I'll make a mental note like, shit, that's a little bit intense over there. But I'll keep moving and I'll just say something like, here is what you asked and here is what I will do. Here's what I would do if I were you. Even if it's the situation is something like, hey, you should leave this person because they sound like they're not doing too good for you. That's usually because somebody will ask, hey, what should I do? And I tell them what I would do. But I feel like there are stuff that's just nobody's business and people want to make it their business. And this goes back to the podcast episode that I made a couple of weeks ago, which is like, I don't know what day and age we live in that, and maybe it's just because so many private things come out now that, it's like things that shouldn't be anybody's business are out there on social media for everybody to experience. Even as a content creator, let's be real. None of my business is your business, but I'm choosing to put parts of my business out there because I want to bring my experience to others in the hope that, and not that they will learn, because I obviously haven't fucking figured it out, but in the hopes that somebody else is going through whatever I went through, or somebody else is having problems. I actually spoke to somebody today who said that they went through somewhat of a similar situation to me, and I'm like, shit, that's like the 4th time I've heard that since I started this podcast. Maybe we should start our own fucking support group, because one of the things that I mentioned was that I fear making friends with people that once you get past that we're just bullshit friends stage, it's like, now I can trust you with the real shit. And if you know the real shit, I'm just not sure that I want to talk about that, because I already know what kind of reaction it's going to what kind of reaction it's going to bring about. And I'm just not sure that I want to hear that. And it's not because I have problems hearing what my problems are. It's more so like, there are things that are embarrassing. There are things that I don't want to hear advice about, because I've already decided in my mind that it's not changing. And so I'm not going to sit there and complain to you about something that I'm not okay with changing. If I sit there and tell you, hey, this is what happened between me and my boyfriend, and I don't know what to do because it was just really bad. Like in some of these support groups, people are legitimately asking these questions. And, people are like, well, you should leave him because he's a clown and because this and this and that. And he's just awful and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, bitch, I didn't ask you that. I asked you what I should do about this particular situation. And people need to know their place. They really do. I think that this 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 podcast has been a journey for me, and I'm breaking this into seasons so that way I have an opportunity to look back, hear back, and experience growth. I'm going to take this time to cultivate a new part of my mental health services wagon. I'm going to focus on my blogging. I'm going to focus on my networking. I'm going to focus on the candles that I'm making to help with aromatherapy and mental health and all that garbage. I think that I just want to I need a breath of fresh air, and I need to give things time to sit so that way I have new stuff to talk about, new stuff to bring to you. I can come and be like, listen, so much has changed. Let me start from the beginning. This is the beginning of my journaling. So I'm grateful for this. This podcast has been like my baby, and now that I'm taking a break, I'm excited to see how it grows, how it changes, what changes in my life. I'm excited to see if, I'm going to keep promoting it, and I'm excited to see if anybody, if my following grows and people actually take use from the stuff that I'm saying, even if it's just so you can have a good laugh. I think that I'm excited to see what it does. So this season, I have spoken about a lot in my life, and I've been very open and very honest, and I hope that people appreciate that because as effortless as I make it look, it's hard getting up here and talking freely, knowing that people might attack you for your personal opinions. Something that I wanted to talk about. I actually am also going to release a blooper reel on TikTok. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about that I never got an opportunity to because I thought it might have been too controversial was this case about, these women who got prosecuted in California, San Francisco, I believe, for causing the stillbirths of their babies with drug use. That one was one that I had to scrap because I didn't think my opinion would be the popular opinion. I'm a woman. I'm also a mother. I have dealt with, I don't want to say addiction because maybe I wouldn't exactly label eating as an addiction. Actually, I probably would label eating as an addiction, but I don't think that where I'm at, it is an addiction. I can stop. I just don't want to. And I've never really had motivation to. I'm trying to get everything back on track. Excuse me. I'm trying to get everything back on track, and now that I have something to look forward to every day, which is going to work, first off, I'm a whole new level of exhausted. This background that I got behind me right now, it's actually hiding 3 weeks of clean, but 3 weeks worth of laundry that I keep living off of by picking out my clothes from instead of hanging them up where the fuck they belong, because I am so tired by the time I'm done with work that I can't even put it away. I'm still trying to figure out how people do this, how they go outside of their house for fucking 10 hours of the day and then come back and then do shit inside of the house too. Like, that's crazy. Oh man, I can hear my son crying in the background. And like I said, he's sick and I feel really bad that he's crying, but I want to wrap this up so that way I can go ahead and spend the next, I don't even know how long my hiatus is going to be. It can be, I was kind of thinking like the summer, like 3 months, June, July, August, and come back when school starts. And namely also because I feel like people are going to spend the summer, they're probably still going to be working, but hanging out with their kids. Weekends are going to be jam-packed and busy. For my stay-at-home moms that listen to me, if there are any stay-at-home moms that listen to me, if people will listen to me, period. Your kids are going to be home for the summer. You're not really going to have an opportunity to hear. Plus, summer's, I don't know. I have ambivalent feelings about the summer coming up. I feel like it's either going to be really good or really shitty. There's going to be no in between. So, I'm nervous about taking this break. Things have changed in my life since I started. The postpartum depression, I feel like I'm finally out of it. I feel like the fog has lifted. I still struggle with certain things. I find myself lately, if I'm driving down the right street and listening to the right song, I will be time traveled back to my time in the service or years ago. Sometimes I'll be back in college and it's so powerful. I'll forget where I'm really at. And I think that I have learned that my anxiety is more crippling than I thought it would be. And I've also learned that I learned that I'm good at this. See, am I good at it though? I'm open. I'm honest. I do say a lot. And I don't know if any of y'all would want me to radio host a radio show for that particular reason, the stumble I just did. I as a person am dumbfounded. This journey started and not immediately after, but as I came down to North Carolina, I am a born and raised Bronxite, Bronx person, Bronx born New Yorker, whatever the word for it would be. I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I came out here for a different life. I came out here to get away from some parts of my life that I felt like I was suffocating in. I could not live in my apartment any longer. I had only lived there for 3 years, maybe 4. 4 would have been this April. So I was living there for almost 4 years, and the walls were dripping with memories that I would much rather sooner forget than anything else. The base of my unhappiness and my depression, and why postpartum had such a clutching grip on my sanity, was because of that house. I lost a child in that apartment, or I guess what was left of one. I had the biggest fight of my relationship that may have taken the whole thing tumbling down there. I experienced being lied to. I had more tears than laughs in that apartment, and it just felt like everything about New York was suffocating me. And I really wish that the person that I wanted to hear all this would listen to me when I say that the reasons why I couldn't be there anymore. The day before I left, he looked at me and he said, "You're leaving me behind." And the truth is, in that very moment, it broke my heart to hear him say that. But part of me was also like, you left me behind a long time ago. And I tried to catch up with you. And now because it's happening to you, you feel it harder, and now you can't trust me and you think I've outgrown you, but the truth of it is that I'm just doing what I have to do for my own sanity because I feel like you're never going to do it. And when I moved, I regretted it because I told myself I would never be the one to leave him behind because I didn't want him to feel how I felt. But I left. And it was, I think he asked me shortly after leaving if I had done it to force his hand. And I said no. And at the time I was being honest. I wasn't doing it to force his hand. I was doing it because I wanted to be happy. I was doing it because I wanted something new for our family. But the more that I think about it and the more I talk about it out loud on here, I realize that I think I was. And I don't know if that's something that I should tell him because I think that being honest is important. But I wasn't exactly doing it like, hey, if I move, you'll move, and we'll get away from everything or whatever it is. But it was just like, I know that it's now something you have to consider. I know that it's not something you can ignore, and I know that the long distance won't be long distance for long, because you are going to realize that I will bust my ass making it down here, and I won't let myself fail and have to crawl back to the Bronx with my tail between my legs. Don't get me wrong, I love how I grew up. Not because I had a fantastic childhood or anything, but growing up in the Bronx, it hits different. It really does. Summer days in the fire hydrant and the sprinklers, quote unquote washing cars, going to the sprinklers in the park, ice cream truck, Mr. Softy, going till like 9 p.m., hanging out in a bodega, getting yourself a sandwich, taking the subway to stay cool in the AC. It's an experience that molded who I am today. And I know I say I don't like that person, the person that I am, but more and more I'm starting to realize that everybody else is the one with the problem. I'm not that bad of a person. I've got a cold exterior, sure. I'm certainly not perfect in a relationship. I'm needy as hell. I'm admittedly high maintenance because I have a lot of trust issues, and you're going to have to work overtime to fucking get me to trust you when you didn't even lose it to begin with. I think anybody loses my trust to begin with just by fucking existing. I don't think there's anybody out there capable of pure, real intentions, and that includes me. Because at some point, and I've been realizing a lot of this lately, there are things in my life that I've had to take responsibility for, and that I've had to be like, damn, you were the fucked up one in that situation. You got exactly what you had coming to you, and you tried to play the victim, and you didn't. But as I got older, that stopped. I really did have good intentions. Even now, I still have good intentions that are sincere. They're 100% sincere. But it's taken me a lot of trauma to get here. It's taken me a lot of, I remember, more and more I'm remembering things that I've done that just speak to my character. So when I was in middle school, I really liked this boy named Lewis. Yeah, I really liked him. We were like best friends. Or at least I thought so. We hung out, and now looking back on it, he must have liked me too, but I wasn't exactly. My first day in middle school, I was wearing a boys polo with Dickie uniform pants for boys. I had Perry Ellis sneakers for boys. And I wasn't exactly built like anything or anybody. As middle school progressed, I definitely got more attractive and I developed breasts and, life was great after that. But me and Lewis were like, we were like friends. We were really, really close friends. And we hung out and it was so dope because we did everything together. And I, at the time, liking this boy was like he was everything that I lived for. I liked him so much. And then I was really nice. And I had a friend who she was my best friend. And she was dating his best friend. And when he broke up with her, I think he broke up with her, she had asked me if I could ask out Lewis for her so she could be with him. Now, mind you, this is my best friend that we're talking about. She knew that I liked them. She knew that I liked them. She knew that I had a book with his name written in it and all of the facts that I knew about him. I was that kid. I was that girl. So, when she did, I was kind of just like, wow, this is the kind of fucked up people that exist, huh? And I did it anyway. I asked this boy out for her, and he literally looked at me and was like, she asked you to ask me? And he asked me what I thought, and I was just like, do what you gotta do. Say yes, she likes you. And he did, and they dated for like about a week. And she was mad that me and him were still like super tight and super close. And I think that effectively ended that friendship right there, because then after they broke up, he wanted to go out with me and we were together for a while. And I really liked this boy. It was like a dream come true. I missed one day of school. Okay, one day. And the new girl who was part of our circle, I come back and he's dating her. And I'm just like, wow, it gets more fucked up. This is incredible. And at the time, I wanted to absolutely die, because that was like my first experience with somebody cheating on me. I left I left Thursday, had a boyfriend, missed school Friday, come back to school Monday, and he's with somebody else. That was so bad. So, that right there, damn, as I'm saying that out loud, I now realize why I had trust issues and why I acted the way that I did, because that was my first like real experience with like having a boyfriend, and that's how that turned out. And I was like in the 7th grade. It was so devastating. But the point of that story is that this girl who was in my friend circle, who now had my boyfriend, I obviously stopped being friends with them, and I stopped being friends with everybody there, and I kind of just became a deeper outcast, because now the only people that I spent all of my days with and was keying with in class, not anymore. She had my boyfriend. So, and it was more so like they pushed me out of the circle. So I didn't talk to anybody. And then as like time went on, just nobody wanted to talk to me. I was pretty lonely. Anyway, so one day I hear this girl talk about that she needs a quarter, I believe, for like the vending machine. And I gave it to her. And she was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Go ahead." And I just let shit be. And it was like, at the time, I'm like, why the fuck am I giving this girl a quarter? But that's because that's the kind of person that I've always been. You could shoot me in the leg and I would probably still tell you to go before the cops arrived. Now, and I said this today, that is not an excuse to take advantage of me, because today, while I have good intentions today, and I will always be the bigger person, you fuck with me today and you pick the wrong bitch to fuck with. Especially if it has something to do about my kids, or has anything to do related to my ex, you will see a side of me that you wish you had never brought out. You know, it's kind of like when people You see it on TV shows all the time. Like, let's say somebody's being nasty to somebody else. I think I saw it in like an episode of Criminal Minds. There was one lady who she was like, some dude, she cut him off. She was like, you drive like an old lady. Like, motherfucker, what's wrong with you? She's sitting there like teasing him about his driving and all this other shit. And she's being mean to this dude. He pulls out a sawed off shotgun and blasts her shit. And her car gets into an accident. She goes to the hospital. She's all fucked up. She's like, oh my God, I don't understand when this happened. I'm that person. Okay? Watch yourself. Because there are a lot of times I'll just let it go because you ain't even worth my saliva. But if you hit the right trigger, I will come at you with absolutely no regard for myself. And I will make sure that you pay for what you just did. I wasn't that kind of person before, and I am now. Life's experiences molded me into somebody who's hard. But that's just who I am now, I guess. And this podcast serves as growth. It serves as evidence that I'm still growing despite what I know. I mean, shit. I may come back from the season and I still haven't heard. I haven't heard on one episode of my podcast. I'm lying. I did hear one episode. But I'll come back and I'll hear that and I'm like, oh God, this season is gonna be better because I got more shit and now I've learned and I've got more wisdom. And I'm hoping to keep doing this so that way when my kids get older and they want to know what I was like, I have something to reference, because the person that is doing this podcast right now might not be the same person when my kids are 15 or 16. I mean, shit, I'm not the same person that I was when I started this podcast. I realized through my growth the things that I am incapable of. I am incapable of letting the past go. I still have a lot of healing to do. I still have so many things that I want to talk about, and still so many things that I'm purposely keeping out of this podcast, not just because it involves more business than just my own, but because I'm not sure I'm ready to give you guys that piece of me. And maybe when I come back, I will be. But I have to be... It's just not... It's not easy. And I'm putting myself, you can't do this half-assed. You gotta either put yourself out there all the way or not, which is why a lot of the things that I'm telling you are things that I don't want anybody to know. These conversations, what really helps me have these conversations as honestly as possible is that I know that my biggest supporters, my two best friends, Diana and Carrie, when I make these podcasts, they're the ones I know are listening. And so I talk like I would talk to them. And when I talk to them, I tell them things that I wouldn't tell everybody. So, well, I just talk straight up. But the reality of it is that there are strangers out there that are listening to this. There are strangers out there that not strangers, but there are people out there that I don't want to listen to this. I absolutely do not. They can use it against me. They can use it against people that I love. And they can twist the narrative to make their lives impossible as well as mine, by extension. This podcast is my baby. It has shown me what I'm capable of in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping that when I come back, I have better things and better topics to talk about. And I'm going to spend the next 3 months culminating and everything that I need. I think moving forward, 28 is a good, I guess, length for a season. It might shorten up. But thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to put my thoughts out there one last time for a couple of months, and for giving me the opportunity to be honest. For those that have been listening and have been giving me feedback, I couldn't have done this without you. Okay. And I hope that you have seen the growth. I hope that you have seen the evolution. I'm proud of myself. I really am. And I hope that somebody, any celebrity, anybody you know, please just fucking tag everybody you know in all of this shit. Because I hope that somebody picks it up and and that it becomes famous, and that I will get all of the equipment that I need and the audience that I need to put these experiences out there. The fact that parenting is fucking shitty. No matter who you are, no matter how great of a parent you are, it's fucking shitty. And it's hard. And the ROI, the return in investment, isn't the little fucking sticky hugs and kisses you get when they're 3. It's when you see what the fuck they turned out as an adult. Turned out like as an adult. I had a rough ass childhood. I wish my mother could have been better. My mother herself had mental health issues. And honestly, there was a point in time where I was like, fuck, I wish my childhood could have been better. I wish that I wasn't poor. I wish that I wasn't this. I wish that I wasn't that. But then I realized that exactly what I went through as a child is what motivated me and drove me more than anything to be not only the woman that I am today, the partner that I was, and also the mother that I am. I have been eating food in the cafeteria. I've been eating the leftover food that my children get at the daycare. Okay? Because I don't have a fucking cent to my name. But my kids have everything that they need. My kid is going to summer camp. Something that I never got an opportunity to do. And I didn't have the money to put it together, but I found it. I don't got money for lunch, but I found the money to send my kid to camp. And that's something that I never would have dreamed of when I was a kid. My kids have the best of everything. I cook frequently in my house. You know, this is the person that I am. And the experiences that I went through make me the person that I am. And as much as I wish that I hadn't gone through all of that pain, from there forged in that fire was a fucking woman that has a lot to offer. And that's not my self-esteem suddenly shooting through the air, but it's the reality is that things could be worse for me as a person. Like, I could be a worse off person. There are plenty of people who sit there and they cheat and they're fucking drug addicts and they're all this, and their excuse is, well, you don't know the shit that I went through. I went through a lot of shit, and I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking, I'm not promiscuous, selling my ass. Okay? I've grown from that trauma, and I became somebody that overall I'm pretty happy with. I'm trying to teach my children to be the woman that I am today and that I will be in the future after I heal. Not the woman that I used to be, not the kid that I used to be. I don't want I don't even want them to be the person that I was 5 years ago. At no point. They're going to have to learn for themselves, but I want to give them all the tools to do that with. And when they get to that age, I want them to hear this and know this was my mother's growth. And they'll never know who I was beforehand. I don't have a lot of account of that. But I'll be as honest with them as possible, including the things that I've done wrong, because I don't want to lie to my kid. So you guys, this is it for a while. This is I'll most likely be back when school starts, and I'll have another 28 episodes to do. I might start releasing 2 a week because I feel like this was a bit much, but I really wanted to establish myself. I wanted to get myself out there. So do me a favor, for everybody who has listened this long. Please go to my website, www.spilling, SPILLING, Anxietea, ANXIETEA.com, and check out everything that I have to offer, and get your membership now, because I'm going to start really cultivating my blog. and putting my candles up out there, and I really want to start focusing on the other projects that I've got going on. I want you guys to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok and Facebook. Okay, my handle is at Powher, POWHER_poetry. I have the same handle across all accounts. I want you guys to follow and rate this podcast so that way you guys know when I'm back. I won't be releasing anything new on here on Spotify, but I will go back on my phone and I will every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, re-put out some of the stuff that I have before. Kind of just as a refresher. So that way you guys keep me in mind. Please support my journey, and if nothing else, send this to somebody that you think would enjoy it. Or send the clips that I have on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter to somebody that you think will enjoy it or that could benefit from it. Talk about me, please, even if it's just a goofy bitch who says a lot, because I've been trying to get Elise Myers to look at my podcast for eons, and nobody has sent it to her yet. I just want to spam her with all of these and hope that she looks at my stuff. So Elise Myers, if anybody can tag Elise Myers in this, y'all know who she is. She's the taco lady on fucking TikTok. Please help me reach my goal of getting this to someone who is way better known than I, so that way I can propel these stories, move them forward, and give them to somebody who could potentially avoid this mistake. And if they've already made it, that they can relate to it. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful fucking summer, because I'm sure that I won't. But that's fuel for next season. Until next time. Thank you to everybody who spilled the